we could have everyone's attention, please. If you could take out your cell phone, iPhone, handhelds, all personal devices, they have to be powered down. They can be on vibrate, silent, or any mode other than powered down. If you are speaking this evening, we ask that you please sign in. We also ask that you direct all comments, questions, and concerns to this board. As always, be courteous to one another and keep your comments to a minimum. And if you do need to speak to one another, please take it out into the hallway. It interferes with our ability to hear those that are speaking. Welcome. First of all, let's motion to open this evening's meeting. May I have a motion?
I make a motion that we open the meeting of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation on April 10th, 2013.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome to the April 10th, 2013 meeting of the Architectural Board of Review and Historic Preservation. My name is Curtis Highsmith, and I am your chair. We would like to introduce our panel that showed up. Unfortunately, Ham Hogue is not here this evening. However, we have Christina Redding, Brian Brady. We have our historic consultant, Zach Studenroth, our legal counsel, Bo Robinson, and as always, we welcome you as well, Antoinette. We're going to start this evening's meeting with signs, and first application sign, please.
First application is Delmonico's of Southampton for a storefront and window signs.
Is the applicant present? Please step forward.
You approved it last week? I don't know why it's on the agenda again. Sorry.
Because it's that type of evening.
Okay, well, if you, if you still like it, we're happy to take the approval.
We did. I thought it was going to be something new.
No, nothing different. So,
Okay, have a good evening.
thank you.
Next application, please.
The next application is 33 South for a storefront sign.
Please step forward. Your name for the record, please.
Daniel Salucci.
Okay. Red background, black lettering.
Have the color if you want the, she said it to bring.
Please have, pass it. Christine, any comments?
No, I think it's kind of nice.
Brian?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the sign application for 33 South at 87 Jobs Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
Next application, please.
Next application is SM Contracting, Inc. for a contractor sign.
Is the applicant present, please? Contractor sign, S&M Contracting, Building Beyond, Sag Harbor, New York, and a website with a phone number. Any questions, Brian?
It's very subtle. Yeah, it's very subtle. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Christine? Any public comment on the application? Fonts are the same, and it's a black and white sign. Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the contractor sign for SM Contracting, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next application, please.
Next application is for Aaron, storefront sign.
Hello, Ronald Fisher. There's been a change. We've actually decreased the size.
Thank you.
And remove the window lettering, so it's a little different what you have.
So the dimensions that you're, it's now 4 by 2?
No, 4 feet 2 inches by 10-inch letters,
Okay.
10 and a quarter.
Christine, comments?
What material?
It's going to be cut PVC with a brass finish, or sorry, gold laminate on top,
That's
and
good.
the acrylic's going to be black.
Yeah, it's very classic.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the storefront sign for Aaron at 83 Main Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds like allergies are killing both of us, huh?
Allergies is so...
And our next application and final sign application for the evening.
Next application is Kitty Clay, LLC, for an awning storefront.
Do I need to say anything?
Your name for the record, please.
Kitty Clay.
That's really your name, Kitty Clay?
It is.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you.
Sample of your awning. It's just retractable.
It is.
Any lettering or anything, it's just the awning. Motion, sorry, any comments?
That was great.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the awning storefront sign for Kitty Clay LLC on West Main Street.
Thanks very
Second.
much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good luck.
Thank you.
Concludes our sign permits for this evening. First application, historic. The application is closed for written decision by council.
In the file is a decision approving the application as amended. An affirmative vote on the motion would be to approve the application.
Motion to approve written decision by council for Calvin Klein.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by our council for Calvin Klein and his 2 sets of driveway gates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next application, please.
Next application is Sunel LLC at 257 Captain's Neck Lane.
Here.
Maybe they have small plans.
Oh, here we go.
My name, let me stand next to this. My name is Bruce Noggle, and that in fact is my real name. And, well, didn't know about
Mr.
that.
Noggle, how are you?
Well, thanks. I am a local architect. I've been practicing and working in the Hamptons since 1983, so this is my 30th year. Very much happy about having the opportunity to work on this particular project that's before you. The project is at 257 Captain's Neck, and it is a property that is a little unique to the community. Has a adjoining structure to it, and is. Let me just get these pictures off of here.
Bruce, excuse me, you could maybe move the easel back toward the door. That way the camera can see it and the.
Okay.
Oh, you don't have a stand for it. Okay, yeah.
Really?
Oh, that'd be good.
Just watch the patron's head. I don't want you to ding her in the head.
I'll try not to hurt anyone.
Please don't.
Myself.
I saw that happening.
Yeah, come on, Tim. Yeah, I fell asleep. I had to take
okay.
so much allergy medicine today.
I understand. It's killing me since
God he called.
Monday.
Yeah, it's the old carriage house at Westerville.
Is this now available to be seen?
Yes.
I want to step back a minute and talk a little bit about Sunel, the client. This is a client who is a local resident, has had a home and the same home for 27 years here in the village. So a very involved and developed relationship with the community. They purchased this property 3 years ago. It was not something they, let's say, entertained doing work to right away. It was something they thought about, and it's been very consciously discussed by them as a family and with me as an architect. So it's a property that I've been working on for about 8 months. And the concept here has been very important to maintain a relationship to the existing structure. It's got a very colorful history. It was part of an original larger estate. I want to just introduce right now the team of people that are here to talk. I have Gary Lawrence, who's a historian that we engaged, and he wants to talk a minute about the history of the project. I've got Tim Rumpf here, who's part of the team, the landscape designer, and John Bennett, the attorney. And Gary, if you could just talk a minute about the history, I think it would be helpful.
Yes, hello. My name is Gary Lawrence. I'm an architect and author. I'm co-author of the book Houses of the Hamptons, 1880 to 1930 with Ann Serkin.
Very familiar with the book.
Did extensive research on the property, which at one time was called Sunset Court Westerly. So I'm quite familiar with the property, the history of the property. It's fortunately one of the great estates of the Hamptons, Southampton, still in existence, which is wonderful. And the history of the property is that it had a carriage house, which is not a carriage, garage building, and 2 cottages. And the property was basically one property till about the 1960s. And then it gradually was parceled off. The main house remained. They had sold off the carriage garage complex, and that was subdivided into 2 different properties. And other out parcels were subdivided. The building, like I said, over the years had been changed and altered, and additions put on and taken off, and garages were removed. So the building has, been changed over the years, and different driveways and so on and so on. Like I said, architecturally, I'm a preservationist, historian. I've written this book. I'm working on another book on houses of Palm Beach. I've done extensive research on estates. And, I write blogs, Mantras of the Gilded Age, Houses of the Hamptons. Facebook has sites there. So I know my historic houses, and I enjoyed the research and the history on these houses. And looking at the design, I think it's quite interesting how it blends in with some of the elements of the older building, which really, I have to say, it's a very simple building. And I think some of the features, which Bruce will explain further, get into that actually.
Thanks, Gary. That's what I wanted right there. As I started to say earlier, this has been a very exciting project for me because of the ability to work with an existing fabric and also do a significant addition to it, and at the same time try to maintain its integrity as a freestanding or identifiable historical structure. The site is a little bit unique in that the existing structure, which is outlined here in orange, I don't know if you can see that, that it is very much forward to the street and very much northerly to the site, so that the allowed expansion or the buildable footprint is a very odd shape that in relationship to where this existing structure is. In my analysis of how an addition could be put onto this building, it seemed relatively logical and almost kind of a one-liner that the addition had to go to the western side of the structure. That also preserves the kind of southern facade of the existing building, so that as the addition is expanded, I'll use this image, as the addition is expanded to the west, it maintains the image and reference to the existing structure. So that I can be, and the client can be, very conscious that this is an existing building and this is an addition to it. One of the elements that was I was concerned about, and certainly as a designer thoughtful about, was the proportion and scale of this structure. it's a relatively small structure. It's only 16 feet 4 inches tall at the eave line, and about 22 or 23 feet to the ridge. So one of the kind of features or elements that I was trying and worked with, and I think successfully, was to introduce the brick material that exists on this structure onto the new structure, but not have it be the full height of the structure, so that there are some scale elements within this addition that work closer to the relationship of the scale of this structure. The other thing was the existing structure has a very, I think, significant roof surface, which is a slate roof. Our intention is that we're going to restore this structure. We're going to restore this roof and restore all the trim work and all of those things within the structure. So as we developed the roof line of the addition, I also introduced slate roofing so that those two materials would start to work together again and be complementary. The addition is, you know, I guess you would say, largish. I mean, everything here is within the guidelines of the village in terms of
The slate,
square foot.
going back to the slate roof, that's
sir.
something you're introducing that doesn't exist currently, correct?
No, the existing structure has a slate roof, which is why I want to use the slate material for the addition. The other thing that this structure has incorporated into the design is some stucco or plaster exterior material. The idea there is to try to articulate the volume so that it doesn't feel like a large, heavy brick volume, and that it has some character and personality to the texture and pattern of the design. The house, like I was saying a minute ago, the house is totally in conformance to all of the village guidelines, pyramid law, setbacks, square footage, both for coverage as well as built structure.
It would have to be here.
I know. So we're not really in that position of that we did not go to the zoning board. There are a few modifications that we're proposing to make to the existing structure. They're not significant, in my opinion. On the eastern end of the structure, there's currently a wooden porch roof and deck and a stairway that goes to the basement. That is being proposed to be eliminated or removed. I think personally it actually makes the existing structure more kind of, let's say, pure, or identifies the shape more clearly. This is a little harder to see in the renderings, but let me see. Along the one facade, no, it's not in there. Thanks. I don't know what happened to it. Let me look right here. Along this face, let me step back. Along this face that's between the two carriage house buildings is a long row of garage bays. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with this property, but when this property was subdivided, the middle garage bays were taken away and turned into a drive-through like porte cochere or breezeway. So what we're proposing is that on these garage doors that we're actually going to modify them from swinging garage doors to overhead garage doors, but we're going to match the pattern and detail of the existing doors. So that's a modification that we're making. And the last modification that we're proposing is that on the southern face, currently this is a window and a front door, if you would say. And we're proposing that they become French doors to open it out to the southern face of the site. The existing house is relatively small. The square footage, it's about 2,500 square feet with about an 800 square foot garage. It has 3 bedrooms. The addition has additional 4 bedrooms for a total of 7 bedrooms now in the overall project. One of the bedrooms is in the basement level. We have kind of a subterranean courtyard. So there's one bedroom that has legal egresses. There's one bedroom on, and then there's four bedrooms up here. So, and we've taken, so we have 4, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms in the house total. And we have a total of 7 parking spaces allocated to meet the code. One of the things that I was attempting to do was complement the scale, even though, you know, in perspective, there's some modification, some kind of emphasis that's happened. But this height here is literally the same height as the ridge height of the main house. And this ridge, or this eave line, I didn't mean ridge, eave line here, and this eave line is only 4 feet taller than this ridge. So it's not an overly massive structure by trying to keep the roof lines down as low as possible. Well, I'm here to answer questions, but there's a couple of other people, both Tim and John would like to make some short presentation.
Is it contributing?
Well, that would be my first question. Was this property subdivided subsequently to 1979?
It was subdivided in, I think, in the mid-1960s, like 65 or 66. And let me issue to you guys, I did prepare a document that's called the Historical Summary, the 2 copies of that I can issue.
I should have that. My reason for asking is that when the survey was done in '79, which of course set the database in place for the district that was then later created, this was an outbuilding. This is an accessory building to a main house.
Correct.
No, well, not at the time. This is the main building was the, if I may, John, was the Gittes estate, which Tory Birch owns now. And these were 2 buildings that were used as part of that originally. I think I've determined the name of the architect back in the near the turn of the century. Is it Weeks or?
Gary, the names of
This and Weeks, yeah.
This and Weeks.
That
That's from 1929,
so
1930.
it was what was the
This was
Gittes.
part of the estate.
It's part of,
Correct.
but at the appropriate time, and when the survey happened, this was on a separate parcel. I believe it was owned by Mrs. Foy.
One of the unique things that happens
It had already been subdivided.
is that in,
And also the parcel, the sort of mirror parcel to the north, as it were,
right.
was also separate.
Okay.
Now, in 1993, when Mr. Geddes bought the estate from, was it Lee's?
Would have been.
Well, it doesn't matter, but in 1993, he bought the big estate, but the 2 carriage house properties had already been subdivided. He then purchased the southern carriage house property, which is the property we're talking about now, and he then kept them in single and separate ownership. And when he sold that then to Tory Birch, then he now bought this piece of property in 2010.
My only question is, as accessory structures to an original estate house, the status of these buildings changes whether or not they're identified in a survey as being primary dwellings on the parcel when the survey was undertaken, or whether they were in fact accessory structures to a primary dwelling at the time. The answer is, okay, matters, because we have accessory structures on estate properties, and then they're subdivided, and then they become their own entities, but they were not individually identified in 1979 as having historical entities. This had already been subdivided.
Yes.
So this property was already identified on that 1979 survey as being its own principal dwelling on a property.
That's correct.
I'm not that familiar with it, but now
I will actually, it's interesting you
Can we
bring
go
that
back to answering
point.
whether it was contributing?
contribute.
Thank you.
If you notice in this photograph, and photograph is taken from the 1979 survey, there's an addition. You can kind of slightly see this one-story
Yep.
That addition did not exist in 1965,
Okay,
and it doesn't exist now.
okay.
And we're not exactly sure when it disappeared.
Yeah, well,
Sometime between 1993 and 2010. So this building has definitely gone through some iterations. Okay, Tim or John?
Well, just a couple things, if I may. I think you can tell that this is a really studied analysis of the property. You know, what was really trying to do is to have some interpretive use of the existing property and put that into the addition. And where does that concept come from? Well, you don't have to look too far. There's a design guideline in the village, the historic district design guidelines, and I'll just hand that out. But I think a couple of things that you have to take into account. Now, I'm just quoting because it says what I would say. New construction should be made harmonious with its immediate historic surroundings. This is not done by outlawing modern architectural design or by dictating one or two preferred historical styles. Instead, the new construction should reflect the characteristic scale, massing, rhythm, proportions, and building traditions of their environments. I think one of the things that Bruce pointed out, well, actually, one of the you pointed this out to me the other day, and I think it's a great example of, you see how the brick and the addition is, we're trying to keep it to the same scale as the brick on the original historic structure, so that it picks up some of those elements. And it's not mimicry, but it's an innovative use of it, to trying to take from the existing historic structure. It shall not destroy the character of the structure, but any addition should be clearly distinguishable from the historic fabric. Now that's important, because all of these design guidelines frown, from what I've been able to tell, on mere mimicry of the existing historic structures. So again, reading from the code section, it's not the code, it's the guidelines, any addition should be clearly distinguishable. So those are some of the guidelines that have guided Bruce and guided the project. And I think we've done a good job of that. You always tell us to see what the neighbors think, try to make the neighbors happy. I hopefully made into the file was a letter from Alan Friedman. Dr. Friedman lives across the street, and he states in a letter dated April 8th to your board, our neighbors, Sonel, have shared the plans for the addition they are adding to their house. We are very much in support of their plans. They have not only preserved the integrity of the existing historic structure, but the addition is in keeping with the houses in the neighborhood. We support the project, and our client did meet with Levine's, who had the sort of, at one time was the mirror house, but that has its own additions to the north, and they were supportive of the design as well. So we would hope that we've followed the dictates of the design guidelines and created something that, while it doesn't mimic what is at the existing site, takes the existing site as inspiration. I think that's it for now.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Tim Rumpf from Aris Design. I think there are just, I'll be brief. One of the advantages I think that we're working with also that hasn't been mentioned, there is a 12-foot privet hedge that is surrounding the property, especially adjacent to Captain's Neck. You'll notice that we've created an additional screening hedgerow to the western property line to kind of shield both in visually and to reduce the noise to the neighbors to the west. And we're continuing to develop that. Obviously, the tennis court is going to have to meet the village code with landscape and the sunken court. But I think the biggest opportunity here is, or the biggest issue here is the existence that large hedge.
Thank you. Anything further?
Can I just finish up with the last few things, or? I wanted to identify that there are some out structures that we are retaining on the property. There's an existing greenhouse in a, state of decay at this point, but we are intending to reestablish it as a structure. There's an existing garage or storage building that's in this corner that we're retaining. We've taken this tennis court that was in this location and relocated to here, and it's a 5-foot sunken court. We've added a swimming pool to the westerly side, as well as a pool house between the pool and the tennis court. So I just wanted to bring up those last things. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Before we get with board comments and historic consultant, are there any public comment on this application? Zach has a contributing structure within the historic district. Have you had the opportunity really truly to review the application, the current design, and been able to identify both history and obviously seeing the information we have now, being able to validate whatever we have and come up with an assessment about the fabric of the current structure?
I haven't. I think the issue here will be the compatibility of the
Existing
aesthetics, the massing, materials, etc. of the extension. I think this board is always welcomes a good solution to preserving something of historical interest, especially when it's an outbuilding to begin with. So this is not a grand structure. This is a relatively modest structure, which presents a challenge in the estate section because, of course, this is a good-sized property and could receive a good-sized house. So to work with what's existing is already, it sets up some challenges. I'd like to study it a little bit further, and this is an unusual building because this is, shall I say, formerly a Siamese twin, surgically removed.
Partially.
That's interesting.
Partially surgically.
Partially, something to that effect. So this is a unique situation, but I think any healthy response to preserving what's there and enhancing it in some way and incorporating into something that's going to be owned and valued and maintained for years to come gives it a fresh start. So I think that's all good stuff. I would just like to study a little bit further. But I think the aesthetics of the actual design, the massing of it, the scale of it, the height, etc., those are going to become issues for your board to
Okay. Brian, comments?
I think it's brilliant. I think it's a really wonderful design. I love how you respected what's there. It's such an odd property, and the way that you've laid out the addition and this, the site, I think is just terrific. I love the modernism of it because I think that's what the site needs because it's such a quirky thing, and that's the best way to sort of respect what's there is to not try to duplicate it as much. So I think it's great.
Christine?
Yes, I'm surprised at myself because normally I think, well, the addition's bigger than what's there, but I really like what you've done, and I think it shows a lot of respect for what's there, and I think it's kind of wonderful.
My comments aren't really towards the architecture. It's beautiful design. My concerns are this board's responsibility per our code and how we represent. I appreciate, Mr. Bennett, your design detail analysis based on the proposed design guidelines for historic structures. I'm referring more towards the village code and how we represent going forward a contributing structure within the historic district and how we obviously safely and respectfully not only accept a project, but it doesn't set any precedents if it's outside of certain things that we may see in the future, which are more grand than what this is. We have challenges with. So I respectfully wait for our historic council to come back with a little history of the property as it exists, to reference obviously some of the material that you currently have proposed before us. And again, nothing with regards to the architecture concerns me. It's just how this board can approve it and make sure that the approval doesn't set any further precedents if it's outside of the standards of what this board is able to do.
One thing that in terms of uniqueness of the property that I might want to bring to your attention, the existing structures, is in terms of the height differential. The existing building creates a real challenge because
It does,
the
but,
second story
I mean,
is
part of our
are
code.
seven and a half story ceilings, and often the knee, I guess the knee wall area is comes down to 5 feet.
5.5 feet.
Right.
So it doesn't.
All of these are granted, and I understand that.
But that would
you
be,
know,
that would allow you to distinguish it from someone who
any
wanted
other.
to have something subsumed.
Right.
I'm sure you identify that because part of the precedent of our code is submissive on any, or the structure itself or any additions to it be submissive to the existing. Using, and obviously also within our village code, using same material and same design and placating on the current design and making sure, not necessarily replication, but that there's a symmetry between the old to the new. Again, there's no issue about the design itself. I like the modern look. It's just this board wants to be respectful with regards to approving such a design, which shows, may have a conflict with some of the code guidelines.
Okay, I didn't see any conflict. I thought we were actually following them quite well. But that's, again, you need all the information.
Exactly.
Zach's will be helpful.
Exactly. Anything further, board members?
Nope.
Anything further? Zach, anything further? Any further comments from public? Anything further from the applicant? All right, it's the first time reviewing the application. You've given us a lot to digest. Give us the opportunity to do that along with our consultant to go out and do his own research. And we'll see you at our next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shall we keep these?
For your comments.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We're not prepared to vote at this time. Are you requesting this board to adjourn for the next meeting? Yes. Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve our applicant's request, Sunel LLC, to adjourn to our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next application, please.
Next application is Irene Dickey, 875 Post Crossing.
Hi,
Aye. Your name for the record.
Irene Dickey.
Okay. You're proposing a rear porch addition?
Yes.
This is the house we've seen. This is like the third time it's been here.
I've seen this, there. Seen it. You want to describe briefly what your design,
It's
material, color?
the posts will be white.
Mm-hmm.
The roof will match the existing roof.
How big is the post?
How big is the post?
Yes.
I don't know. It's not on the plans.
It usually is on the side, but we're just asking for the record. So you understand this is a taping that
Oh, okay.
gets reviewed, so.
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Give you,
Yes, then it's on
So
the
the
rear
rear.
of the house. Yes.
how high is the,
I don't know any of these things
okay.
by memory.
We'll let you get away today. No problem.
Sorry.
Zach, do you have the information?
Back of the house, right? It's
Question would be
kind of simple.
the spacing of your columns.
That's
Yes.
what we asked.
Yes. And
Very
the architect.
inventive.
Oh, is that okay, I hope that's gonna be okay.
No,
All right.
it's a new porch, so you can
Right.
do whatever you like.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
I'm just commenting, it's
Okay.
in the historic district, but it is the
Yes.
back
No,
of
the
house.
reason was so it sort of allows the a good sight line from the French doors.
Mhm.
Kind of makes it,
Right, you
I
don't
don't know,
want a
I think
column in front of
aesthetically
that door.
looks prettier, yeah,
And those doors have to be there because they relate to the room that behind them.
that's correct.
Okay.
Brian, any comments?
Nope, I think it's fine.
Christine, any comments?
It's really appropriate, lovely.
Zach, do you have any comments about the,
I think it's great.
Oh, thank you.
I think all those columns, all asymmetrical, and I think it's very good.
is there any public comment on the application? Okay, unfortunately, we can't give you an approval today.
Okay.
Because the property is located in the historic district,
Okay.
it requires a written decision
Okay.
for any approval.
Okay.
Seems to be no opposition of this board to go further with an approval. However, we have to empower our council to prepare that at our next meeting. So this evening, we would adjourn. We'll ask council to prepare that, and we'll have the approval at our next meeting. It's not necessary that you be here, but if you wish, well, certainly you are able to.
Okay.
Any
All right.
questions?
Nope. Okay, thank you very much.
Anything further from the public? Council, anything? Okay. At this time, we'll adjourn for written decision by council, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn for written decision by council?
I make a motion to adjourn the application of Irene Dickey at 75 Post Crossing for a written decision by our council.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That concludes our historic applications for this evening. First application, non-historic.
First application is Santiago Trigo, and unfortunately, I need to recuse myself, so we don't have a quorum again.
You can present if you wish, but we don't have a quorum. He'll still pay you.
I'll present.
Should I
Still
leave?
present? Yes. You understand you probably will have to re-prepare yourself when we have another member here.
Okay, I would have to represent it.
I'm
Next
sure,
meeting.
yes.
Oh,
He's
then-
gonna wanna see the,
Then that's okay, it doesn't pay for me to
sure?
present it now.
Okay, I'm giving you the option, so it's your
No, that's
discretion.
okay, I'll just come back.
You'll come back. So you're asking the board to adjourn so that,
Yes.
well, we can't even adjourn the application, nor do we have standing to open the application, realistically.
Correct.
Thank you. Next application, please.
Next application is Joanna Schechter, 5 High Street.
Good evening. Jose Jimenez from Southampton Engineering for
Sorry?
the owner. Jose Jimenez from Southampton Engineering for the owner.
Plans you're giving us already in file, they mimic and match everything? Okay, thank you.
During the last meeting, we have some comments or issues on the addition roof line that we presented, and maybe when I go back to that, it's the last page on the set that I gave you. Let's see. There were some concerns about page F. Some concerns about the height, you may remember, and then we came back. If we go back to the A, the first one, we came with a few alternatives that we want to review with you. This one, the A, basically we're utilizing the highest point of the main house.
Are you looking for at proposal 1, 2, 3, or 4? Sorry?
Well,
it says proposal 1, 2, 3, or 4.
The number two, that's
Okay.
the south elevation.
Proposal 2.
Yeah, we utilize the height of the main, the top of the ridge of the main house to run kind of like a cricket to lower the height of the roof. That was one of the concerns that it was more visible from the street. We also changed the direction of the roof, reversed the pitch. The only little area that will be noticeable, we ended up with a little gable on the side of the garage on the elevation number 3, the west elevation. On that, this is the sort of 8 alternative. Then you ask us to present a few alternatives for the same roof. So if you go to page B, we took the addition and basically created a pyramid roof, which it solves a little bit the question about the roof. The actual addition is set back at 30 feet from the street, which is the current setback. The house is somewhere around 25. The setback of the existing house is pre-existing non-conforming. So the actual wall that makes the second floor addition is set back 6 feet into the house. And by pitching the roof back, the roof will sort of disappear from the street. That's the alternative B. And we try something different with the C, which is basically raising the ridge a little higher above the house. But
what is the height?
The height will be 23 feet. We're still within, within the allowable height. And just by cutting the ends of the roof, extending the existing main roofs of the house into that new roof, it kind of sort of puts everything together. It helps to tie up the two buildings, which originally there were two separate structures: the little main house and the garage, the now attached garage, which was connected by a weird flat roof. And then the D is another version very similar to the C, which is just going straight with gables at both sides of the addition. The one on High Street, it's on the alternative D, elevation number 1, which is the High Street side. You'll see a little bit of the gable, no much. And on the other side, which is the west, number 3, you'll see a little bit more of the gable with the same detailed louver. And so those are the alternatives.
Brian?
Well, all of them are better than the one you presented last time.
Thank you.
I think I prefer the scale of A.
That's
better.
everything.
I
Yes.
mean, because the original house has a nice scale to
Yeah.
it, and now you're just sort of blending it all
Correct.
together. And I think it's the less obtrusive of any of them.
That's
so.
exactly what we thought. So, but we wanted to present some more alternatives. This is for the main house. We were also part of the application. We're proposing converting the garage, the detached garage, into a pool house, which is basically replacing the garage door with 2 windows and adding a French door on the north side of the pool house. Right.
Christine?
Yes, I would select the scale of A.
Yes. Okay.
I think that's unanimous. Still, on the other versions, especially your original, the various roof pitches, designs, and it was just too much.
Okay.
I think this is cleaner, it's neater. If you're going to ask A, B, C, or D,
Yeah.
you know, as an SAT score, I would put A.
Okay.
Anything further? Board members, nothing? Any public comment on the application? So you're saying that your applicant or your customer client prefers A?
Yes.
You have discussed that with the applicant, so
Correct.
you have a set of plans that show A is your,
Yes.
okay. Motion to approve proposal A.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the application of Joanna Shackstaff at 5 High Street for proposal A, Plan A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Next application, please.
Next application is Jackie and Chandler Wells at 134 Pelletreau Street.
Rick Stott, architect for the applicant. I have affidavit of mailing and this is a very small scale addition to a small scale house. Very simply and briefly, we met the client's expectations with a small addition to the west side of the house and covered it with a one-story roof that's basically an extrusion of the roof that covers the one-story section of the house on the front side. We wrapped that around the corner with the same roof pitch. All the materials will match existing, except they'll be new, of course, where the new addition is. Some replaced shingles on the, especially on the west and south side of the house. Be red cedar shingles just like the ones that are there. White trim windows and asphalt shingles to match the existing ones. The property's been through a lot line modification recently. That's all been approved and is in order. The only thing on the existing house that we're adding to it, I think, is gutters and leaders to help deal with the water. Those are the only changes, other than the addition itself, we're making.
Seen it. Seen it. Any issue? Christine?
I looked at that in the building.
Is there any public comment on the application? Very modest, in keeping and within code. Have no issue and concerns. Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the application of Jackie and Chandler Wells at 134 Pelletreau Street.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next application, please.
Next application is for Lilimus LLC, 567 Oxford Road for driveway gates.
Good evening. My name is Chris Coy, Barnes Coy Architects. Here's a, I don't know if the board has a rendering of the gate. The only thing I'd like to point out is that this is actually an inner driveway gate. You have the site plan, I assume?
Grab the file, hold on. Sorry, doing multiple things at one time.
I'd like to point out that their driveway meets ox pasture here. There's an existing gate there. This gate in the application is the inner one, and it's only for the deer. Hey, Zach. It's only for the deer, so.
You got a gate for the deer?
Yeah, gate for the deer.
Is that to let the deer in or let them out?
To keep them out, but you know, some of these deer have.
I thought it was calling you deer.
Some of these deer have a good eye, so we have to make a nice looking gate.
Transparency, I have no issue, no concerns. It's fine.
Fine.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the application of Lilimus LLC at Ox Pasture Road for the driveway gates and posts.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Next application.
Next application is MGAB Realty LLC, 104 Potato Field Lane.
Good evening. My name is Robert Bomarito. I'm one of the members of MGAB.
Give me 1 second.
Oh, sorry. Affidavit of posting.
I'm just gonna put them in here for you.
Thank you.
So we are proposing to build a two-story, one-family home within the village. I believe you all have the plans. I have some samples. If you'd like to see, we're basically doing a brownish aged wood asphalt shingle, a standard Anderson 400 white window with basic white trim in the house. It's basically a modest, approximately 2,200 square feet plus a garage, an attached garage. Modest home that we hope to blend right in. It's going to be a cedar shingle, of which I also, again, have a sample if you'd like to see. A natural, just sealed finish to the shingle. Pretty straightforward, again, in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. Nothing eccentric, and intend to kind of make it look like it's been there.
Why do your plans say vinyl siding?
I think those should have been amended. It's a cedar, natural cedar shingle. I think those were just the original. That was never the intent. This is the actual shingle that we have.
Brian, comments?
Is there any trim on your windows?
Just a basic white trim around, similar to this. There's no shutters or anything, just a basic white.
Because that's not shown on the plans either.
Actually, these are the amended plans.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the modular plans, 2.1.
Thought we amended them to include that, again, with changing that vinyl siding, which was never part of the plan.
No cedar. And that's the trim of the stairs, so. What it is.
Is the modular?
It is.
Yeah. That's the amended plan. The other, this is the modular plan.
Anything further, Brian?
Nope, it's very simple.
Christine?
Nope.
I think it'll fit into the neighborhood well.
I do too.
Any public comment on the application? Anything further from the applicant?
No.
These are the modular plans too.
Yeah, but they're being revised.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the application of MGAB Realty LLC on Potato Field Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you for
Good
your
luck.
time.
Okay, we have left is a request for possible designation or
22 Windmill.
possible landmark status for 22 Windmill. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Please step forward.
Good evening. I'm Robert Strata, and I'm the Executive Director of Peconic Historic Preservation, a not-for-profit 501c3 corporation that's
This goes in there.
that has been looking at this building for a very long time. In fact, Curtis, I think you were sitting in that chair when we first started talking about it. But what I'd like to do before I start showing you, yes, congratulations.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'd like to just read from a narrative that we supplied the Society for the Preservation of Long Island Antiquities, known as SPALIA, whom I'm sure you're all aware of, to nominate this building for its endangered structures list. And I just want to talk about three things before I show you these images. First, this is a derelict building. 22 Windmill Lane is a building that's been owned by the same owner since the 90s, and has no interest in preserving this building or even anything but destroying this building so that it can have a vacant lot to put a new building up. When I first became involved in this building and looking at it back in 2006, I went through the file and I noticed that the owner had submitted some plans for a new building with underground parking. And as Mark Epley likes to say, maybe he thought you could swim to your car. But it's absolutely impossible to evade the Suffolk County Department of Health Services concerns for a proper septic system that could make this building, the way it is configured, a viable dwelling. So the reality is the current owner has no interest in preserving this building. The second thing is that Scalia, back in 1979, identified this building in 1979 as historically significant, and that along with other downtown village properties, this, then identified as the Henry Rhodes House, was not included in the Southampton Village Historic District when the boundary lines were drawn in 1986. The owner has sought, if you ask John Foster, several times, permission to demolish the building, and that it's been temporarily denied on the grounds that the house has, quote, historical interest pursuant to a code change that delays the demolition of buildings that exceed 75 years of age, pending a special review by this board. Nevertheless, this building is at risk. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the history of this. And I'd like to show you the first image, and that is this map. Unlike my friend Bruce Nagel, I don't have a tricky easel, so I'm just going to have to.
There's one in the back.
I can just hold these up, if that's okay with you. Okay. So the reality is, here's a great old map. Now this map shows, and forgive me for putting Main Street upside down, but I wanted you to see the road to Bridgehampton. Well, the road to Bridgehampton is Hampton Road. So at the corner of Hampton Road and Main Street, where the town hall was erected in the 20s, the 1920s, stood the Henry Rhodes House. Now, Henry Rhodes wasn't the first one to own this property. In fact, it goes back to Uriah Rogers, a fellow sea captain. And Rogers, one of the early subdivisions, Bo, Rogers subdivided the property, selling some of it to Benjamin Hunting and to Henry Rhodes. So we're talking about an 18th century building. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Rhodes. Rhodes was a ship captain prior to the Revolution.
By the way, Bob, how is Rhodes spelled?
R-H-O-D-E-S.
Thank you.
And his subsequent heirs also occupied the property until it was sold to Robinson, who turned it into a hotel of questionable reputation.
Whoops.
Sorry.
Robinson.
No
huh?
relation that I have.
Robinson,
huh?
that's right.
That explains a lot.
No, I just never met the man. But the reality is that it actually was to become the first Southampton Town Hall, and the reality is that took place in the 1920s. There are several books, many books written about Southampton, but the one that comes to mind is the one that's sort of all pictures, and it's about as big as this. Well, in that book, there's a photograph of the new town hall, and it talks about taking this house, although they don't identify it as the Rhodes House, and literally pushing it down the hill to Windmill Lane, to where it sits today. What's happened to it is that in its history in the 20th century, it became many things, including a plumbing showroom. Hence the 20th century facade that's clad to the front of the building. So you don't really see this 18th century building unless you're only looking at the gable roof. Now I'd like to just begin to tell you a little bit about what's inside of this building, and I'll show you the pictures. It is a pre-Revolutionary War period half house. Our esteemed colleague, Mr. Studenroth, can talk about half houses. But it is typical of the 18th century. And despite later additions that I was talking about before, there are significant 18th century architectural features that exist inside this building. And the way I know this is we bought an option to buy this building, to restore this building 7 years ago. So I've been all through this building, and that's what I'd like to share with the board. I'd like to share with you some photographs. Starting in the attic. You have some of these photographs, so they're not going to be a surprise. But starting in the attic, what you're looking at is a rafter and a collar tie, all identified with the same Roman numeral, with a trunnel, better known as a tree nail, put through it. And it stands there. This is there. If we walked over there today, you would see this. In addition to that, this is also up in the attic, just lying there. This is the original wainscoting. So during the course of this building's reinvention or renovation, someone said, well, what are we going to do with this extra wainscoting? Oh, let's put it up in the attic. It's still there. Don't know exactly when that happened. But to put the wainscoting in perspective, this is a shot of the interior. This is the wainscoting. All of this is original. And this is the way the Rhodes House was built in the 18th century. And it stands there today. This building makes a case on its own. It doesn't need me to talk on its behalf. This is a detail of the mantel. The reality is that we are at risk of losing one of the oldest buildings in the village that we have an opportunity to save. Now, a lot of homes have these fake beams in family rooms. And this is kind of fake looking until you look at the one next to it. And the one next to it is actually a hand-hewn beam from the 18th century that's been clad over with other material. So this timber frame structure exists throughout the building, not just in the attic, as the first picture indicates. And this sheathing, when you rip off the sheetrock, is completely original and can be found in many places in the building, including the addition in the back of the building. Almost done. This is like the aha moment. This is a gun stock post that is only to be found in first period colonial buildings. And what I'm referring to is that as this post rises to meet the plate, it flares out because it's supporting plates coming in different directions as well as the end girt which supports the gable roof. Here's some new insulation, etc. And then finally, and you all have a picture of this in your in the submission. This is an miraculously unmolested 18th century barrel back corner cupboard with the original glass. It's just the rain.
I was hoping I'll have my sunroof closed.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
It's biblical.
Yeah, it's, oh yes, thank you.
Old house.
Yes, we'll save it, we'll save it.
Christina.
And it survived the fire.
Same one.
Oh, really?
The reality is that this is the real thing. Clad in like a crummy party dress to make it through the 20th century. And when you strip all of this away, you come down to the bones of a colonial building that has a history of being built on Hampton Road, the road to Bridgehampton and Main Street, in the middle of the first building period in America. How this building is overlooked historically is beyond me. But you have an opportunity to save it, or to see that it gets saved in some form, that it's not destroyed, that it's no longer put at risk for someone who doesn't know what to do with it. And I'd like to just close by reading a note written by Scalia, and I think you have a copy of it. But if you'll forgive me and just let me read it into the record as well. Mr. Curtis Highsmith, Chair, Board of the Historic Preservation and Architectural Review. Dear Mr. Highsmith and members of the board, as regional advocate for historic preservation on Long Island, the Society for the Preservation of Long Island Antiquities, SPALIA, supports the inclusion of 22 Windmill Lane, AKA the Henry Rhodes House, into the existing Southampton Village Historic District designation. This is a property with deep ties to Southampton history, beginning as a ship captain's residence that was later adapted for hotel use and ultimately relocated to accommodate a growing commercial center. The building directly reflects the area's transition from a pre-Revolutionary War settlement into a popular summer resort. It retains much of its earliest architectural elements at the interior, and its current exterior form reflects the flat-roofed, in-town aesthetic of a later age and new location. As a modified structure with intact period features, 22 Windmill Lane has a rich story to tell about Southampton's change over time and is well worth preserving into the future. And that's sincerely Alexandra Parsons Wolf, the Director of Preservation Services. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it for me.
This is an informal application.
It is,
So it is not officially on the agenda as an open application for open dialogue as well as public comment. In order for us to get it on record, and the process of any designation is first and foremost, there has to be an official application to do so for a certificate of appropriateness for the purposes of designation. There has to be a series of public meetings, which gives the public as well as the applicant and owner and this board the opportunity to hear all viewpoints and presentation before the board. After such open discussions and public discussions, we have our historic consultant do a report on the history as well as the recommendation of our historic consultant, whether it should or should not be designated, and the board does a vote at that time. So that's the process.
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
We're hoping to get that process started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Curtis, if I may just
Please do.
mention something. This board does not have much history or precedent for adding landmarks to the historic districts since they were created.
We've done one.
There's one example being the former barber shop on
Mhm.
North Sea Road. And I just want to point out that unlike that building, which is located at some distance from the existing historic district boundaries, this is a property which I should also say was, that barbershop structure was not included in the historic survey back in 1979 for whatever reason. This particular building was, and it is situated within one property from the boundary line of the existing historic district. And I'm only mentioning that because of the approach to how this property, there are two approaches. One would be to look at this property as a proposing it for unique individual landmark status. That's a procedure for that within the code. The other would be to look at this, because of its near contiguous status to the existing historic district, would be to look at this from the standpoint of changing the boundary line.
That would have to, I don't think we
I'm
have
saying-
the authority to change the boundary lines.
What I'm saying is that
No, we
you're,
don't.
yes, you do.
Yes,
I'm
we do.
only pointing out what the
Okay.
code provides for. There
Sure.
are two alternatives. One is to approach this, and this perhaps would come out in a series of public hearings and
Sure.
presentations. But I'm not quite sure how the applicant should approach, because there are two choices. One is as a freestanding landmark proposal, which the barber shop went through. The other, because of its very close proximity to the boundary of the existing historic district, would be to make an application to change the boundary line to pull it into the existing district. The point here is that it's not immediately contiguous to the historic district. There is one parcel between it and the boundary line. That other parcel was included in the historic survey of 1979. Both buildings were. This building and the one next to it, both of which are immediately contiguous to the border. So, there are two approaches to this. And I think it matters. Perhaps this board could give direction to the applicant or ask me to suggest how this should be approached. The difference is that this is a unique parcel. If the approach is to change the boundary line, then the contiguous property would also be involved in the discussion.
Okay. But the whole purpose is of having a policy that allows us to take a non-contributing, a contributing structure outside of the district, and therefore going procedurally through the course that I discussed before. That's the reason why we have such a process.
Well, it's now a non-contributing.
I only question that we've never, in past times, and setting a precedent now may be a little challenging, just rearranging the entire, the boundary of a specific area due to an oversight, obviously. However, it still exists as a...
I think it was an oversight. I think it was an oversight that this particular property and the one immediately next door to it, which separates it from the boundary line of the district, I think both of those buildings, which was surveyed in 1979 and considered of historical interest, et cetera, and in 1979, mid-18th century, Henry Rhodes, all of that information is on that form.
Sure.
Filled out in 1979. So that aspect of this is not news. It was just not included for whatever reason. I'm simply saying this board is empowered to create historic districts.
Correct.
You're empowered to landmark buildings. And those powers are equal. You have a procedure for public hearings and all the rest of it. I'm saying there are two alternative approaches. One is to look at this as a freestanding landmarked property. The other, because it's only one property removed from the district, would be to look at amending the boundary line of the district to include this property. It's two different approaches, and I don't know if that affects how the applicant should.
Okay, again, informal,
this.
so we're not in a
Yeah,
position
I mean,
right
these
now
are-
to make such, not even make recommendations as an informal.
But will we have an opportunity to discuss this and come up with the best approach?
Well, it's informal, so we don't have a opportunity to make any discussions or recommendations. It actually, at this point, it's a presentation before this board. Do we have standing to make any recommendations as an informal application?
No, you don't. And unless and until you have a formal application, you do not. There's been an informal presentation this evening. Zach, you are counsel or consultant to the board and therefore available to the public for inquiry by the public. I don't think it's up to the board to make a recommendation as to how this should proceed.
Okay.
I think it's up to the applicant. The applicant can confer and consult with you and benefit from your knowledge and expertise in these areas about how to proceed and therefore proceed accordingly, and may well, in fact, the applicant might propose both alternatives to the board during a formal application, and then let the board decide at the end of that procedure or during that procedure which way would be the best to proceed or
Just
or
wanted to
conclude
point
it.
out, it's an unusual situation in as much as it sits so close to the existing boundary.
We just want to be
lines.
careful because we've had
This has to be an
informals.
applicant, this is not an
We've
application
had
of the
informal
board, it's an
applications in
application
it before
to
where
the board.
comments have been made and they were brought into the application process and obviously we know which application we're referring to. We don't want to continue to mimic that type of behavior.
Fine. Okay.
So, when the application becomes formal, or as council has stated, Zach is a party of the village, which is available to the public through the building department, not through the board, but through the building department. Expertise for hire. So you have that discretion to use his resources if necessary. However, we can't give recommendation.
I understand.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
It's not an open application, so it doesn't require any motions on the application. All that's left are minutes. However, because of the minutes for March 13th and 27th,
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
have to be thoroughly reviewed for certain actions that may or may not occur. So at this time, we're not going to motion on the minutes from both days until they're audited and reviewed and to assure that everything is perfect.
Okay.
And there are no errors or omissions from the meetings of those 2 nights. Any
Okay.
questions, comments?
No.
Any issues? All right, so that closes the meeting. Motion to close, April
I make a
10th.
motion that we close the meeting of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation for April 10th, 2013.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good evening.
Thank you, good night.